So not all who apply will be chosen. I think we all have seen this applying for jobs, but it applies relationally, right? I think we hear a lot about the numbers. 80% of women want 20% of men, right? The ratios on dating apps of the swipes to the unswiped, it's everywhere. We got a video here where a woman talks right about that, but there's a key point I think that she misses. Let's see if you can guess what it is. And before, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the chat.
Social media and dating apps make us women feel like we have endless options. Technically, they say 80% of us want the top 20% of men. And I mean, naturally, that's how it goes, even in nature. Think about it. Not all males are selected. That's just a
Now, absolutely correct. Not all males are selected. That's naturally how it's always been throughout time, throughout our history as a species. Not every man is going to find a mate. Not every man is going to find a woman to carry his genetic potential, his genetic seed into the future. Some of us are the dead ends of our genetic line, and we just haven't realized it yet. Facts. That's fair to say. We all don't have to argue that, right?
normal thing, whether we like it or not. But I think us knowing that there's not enough of those top 20% for all of us. So most of us are going to get left out, unless you're into sharing. That's one option. So what do? The remaining 80% of men tend to be invisible to us. Maybe we need to look a little harder because
That's something men have been saying forever, right? And I think the apps help sort of elucidate that fact that a lot of regular, degular men are absolutely invisible. Absolutely. Women are sort of programmed and advertised to want what they want. Everything on that list. The old adage of the husband store about wanting, if a man got 80% of the things that he really wanted, he would be fine. He'd be happy, content for the rest of his life. And woman wouldn't think of that. What about the rest of the 20? Want to get close to it, as close, or at 100 as possible. So, like suggesting, what do you do now that you can't get that top 20%? And realistically, right, I think we in the last couple of years we went from top 20% to maybe top 10%. As more and more people get on social media and kind of spew what they want, it's becoming increasingly smaller. Couple that with the how expensive, know, how well inflation has put its thumb on that number as well. So what used to pass as top 20%, what used to pass as, oh, he makes six figures, just 100,000 was enough. Now we're looking, and the conversation is starting to be, well, he makes $101,000, and that's not the six figures we're talking about, right? It becomes harder and harder. But let's continue.
there are good men among them. What percent of them are not worth being with? We got to figure out, because although there's a top 20%, there got to be a bottom percentage that women shouldn't deal with at all, because a lot of men say women should need to choose better, right? So what's that percentage? What's that good range that women should be looking for? Because there's not enough for everybody. And what's the thing should we look for when looking for a mate that is not within the top 20%? Guys, help us out if you think we're worth helping out. That
So I think most men, right, who grew up or were socialized in hearing that they weren't enough, that their $75,000, their 60,000, their 80,000, and 90,000, that wasn't enough. That they're automatically excluded. As long as with along with height, along with a multitude of other reasons, or other things that give women the ick, other things that exclude them, that are going to resign them to a life of loneliness. So I think there's a huge drift that is that is added to the divide between us. So in this case, I think the thing that she's missing, and I'll give you a second to write it in the comments. I think what she's missing is understanding that as men, some men aren't chosen, and that's a natural thing. The same for women. Some women are not going to be chosen for the life they want, for the relationship they want, for the marriage that they may seek. Some women are not going to be chosen, and there's going to be good women among that number. Just the same for men. We are at the point where it's almost as if male attention, even from the, the 80% that they discarded, that they still sort of found entitled to that. That it's a simple thing of, and I want that thing, bring it back. This is the quintessential thing that men have seen growing up. I've seen it, right? Growing up, the ugly duckling, the young man with potential, and seeing all the things, all the women that I wanted, and like, oh, I wish, not getting any type of that attention when admittedly I needed a lot of work. I needed a lot of work. So now, like my other video said, it's greater later. You've done the work, you've made something yourself. Now all that seems like, oh, like we were fond of saying, hey, big head, right? But now you're like, yeah, you kind of dismissed me already. And that hurts the ego, right? Or you've made your decisions, and that's fine. I'm not calling out any decisions you made, any choices you made in life, but now I'm just no longer an available option. And it's not a spiteful thing. It's just, hey, I've lived and had to do these things. And it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of work. So feeling like you're entitled to me and my feelings and my time is insulting. And I think a lot of men feel just that way. Again, we're just we're just valuable at different times in our lives. Now you come and we're all older, and specifically in my cohort, and you want to sort of pry and apply your trade the same way you did when we were 20. It's it's a thing of, if we're sticking with the allegorical thing of nature, that as we age, our attempts need to be wise and need to be reflective of that change in age. My my game at 20 was all potential. What could I offer you down the line? Build with me and I could do this for us. Right? We can be that empire. We can build the empire together. I had to sell you the dream because I didn't have anything. I had nothing but dreams. Potential is just dreams. But now, years later, of you constantly looking at the 20%, and I can't be the top 20% at 20 years old, 25 years old, even, early 30s. It's going to take time for me to separate myself from the pack. So now I'm 40. I'm not selling you dreams now. I can show you tangibles. I can show you reality. Hey, this is the experience. Being with me is this type of experience. You can't come to me with 20-year-old game. And I think this is a thing with women. Women rarely evolve their approach to men. They simply rely on a man's lust and desire for women to say that's going to be the thing that bridges the gap. Say, like, you go on a date and you have to carry the bulk of the conversation with men. Well, what happens when you find a man that can carry the same conversation, right? When he can when banter is his middle name. Now what? How do you now separate yourself, right? What's your play now, rather than what's lacking in a men? Because again, the men, your game is from 20 years ago when you were just young. Now what is it? How do you entice that person? How do you set yourself apart? Oh, but you don't audition, you don't chase. There's a whole laundry list of things you don't do because at 20 you didn't have to. So now we're left in this place where men are just saying, okay, cool. Maybe now that I am the top 20%, top 10%, top 5%, I'm going to go and get the thing I want with someone that recognizes and values that, not someone that looks and says that, hey, you're the leftover. You're the leftover 80%, and I'm trying to suss out where I can sort of land and find you, because the guy I want, originally the guy I want is not you. It's a tough thing, and I seriously doubt she'll see this. The internet is a small place, but it's not that small. But for everyone in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. I'll see you in the next one.